Video games are important. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Nah, just kidding. I have other things to say. Here we go. This is a little bit of an out there talking point for me, because as much as I love video games, I don't really consider myself a gamer, which is clear from my building of a gaming PC. While I may not consider myself a gamer now, that wasn't always the case. When I was just a wee boy, well, maybe not so much wee, but still a boy, I would have considered myself much more of a gaming enthusiast than I do now. Because if you looked inside the mind of 2000s to early 2010s me, it was mostly consumed by video games on top of the wonder of titties and how a vagina works. But that's a topic for another video. In my youth, the original console my family had was the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, otherwise known as SNES. Yeah, this is editing clay right now. So upon further review of my childhood, I realized I didn't have the Super Nintendo, I just had the Nintendo Entertainment System, which was the NES. Yeah. That's not the only mistake I made in this video. I was a little bit drunk, but you'll probably see as you move forward. But yeah, try to enjoy it as much as you can. Okay. And we had all the staples. Super Mario, Zelda, Street Fighter, and a few others that I didn't really care for, nor do I remember well enough to discuss. Being that I was a mid-90s baby boy, by 95 the SNES was kind of ancient technology, with the Nintendo 64 coming out with games like Super Mario 64 that allowed you to move freely in a 3D world, instead of the standard up, down, left, right. The only issue was that I didn't really have the opportunity to experience anything outside of 2 dimensions for reasons I'm getting to. However, the SNES was able to fill my empty gamer void for a time at least. That is until me and my sisters got in trouble for causing mass genocide on walking fungi and anthropomorphic turtles before school one day, which was something that apparently my mom was none too keen on, and for that reason, the SNES was out. I always wondered what happened to the SNES that day. Where it was going, whether or not it missed me, and if it was in the hands of another caring snot-nosed little shit, until the day I made a discovery of my own. As it turns out, it didn't go anywhere except for the hands of my loving and adoring mother.
All around me are familiar faces,
who I caught sneaking in sessions in the Mushroom Kingdom trying to cover it up like Prince Henry covering up his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. As it turns out, discovering my mom's secret addiction didn't do anything to help my case. After being exposed in a fit of embarrassment, the days of the SNES truly came to their conclusion. And so do my hopes and dreams.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't.
Okay, I'm being dramatic, but at 8 years old, that's kinda how it felt. Now, that's not to say that things were all that bad. My sister and I were both graced with a Game Boy Color, followed by a Game Boy Advance for myself. Which, by the way, Nintendo, how about inclusion, my guy? Where's the game girl, you racist? Just kidding, Nintendo. Keep putting out bangers. We also had some PC games like 102 Dalmatians and Monsters Inc. and some horse bullshit my sister was really good at that I couldn't understand to save my life, but enjoyed watching nonetheless. However, these could only provide so much entertainment in comparison to what was out there. 102 Dalmatians still slaps though. As I grew older, so did the industry. New consoles, new graphics, and I was just sitting on the sidelines waiting for Coach to put me in the game. The only time I really had the opportunity to enjoy what video games had to offer back in the day when Surge and Easy Squirt Ketchup were all the rage was at friends' houses, as well as the occasional visit to my cousins. Somewhat infrequent, but man, did I strike when the iron was hot. Super Smash Bros, Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, Spider-Man 2, Jak and Daxter, just to name a few. So many games, so little time. If SNES was the line of Colombian Bang Bang that got me hooked, everything else was the Angel Dust Mountain on Tony Montana's desk at the end of Scarface, and fuck it, the world was mine. Before I knew it, elementary school came and went, and middle school followed respectively, because I am of average intellect. With it came the next generation of consoles, which in my opinion ushered in the golden age of gaming. At this point, the urge to game was impalpable, and I grew restless. If I thought Mario 64 looked like God in 2006, imagine how I felt when HD graphics entered the chat. However, this isn't a video on the evolution of gaming. This is a video on why I believe video games are important. And in my opinion, there is no other game that is more important than that of a little indie title some of you may have heard of called Halo 3. Holy shit, dude. Halo 3. I can't give enough thanks and praise to Bungie because, damn it, was Halo 3 just otherworldly levels of fuck. Sorry, I was losing my buzz. However, in my experience, this game was the straw that broke the camel's back. When I saw the Believe campaign commercials, I damn near cried and peed myself. And I didn't even know what Halo was previously because all I was really aware of was PlayStation and Nintendo. I can't even put into words how much this game meant and still means to me. Not only because it is quite possibly the best game ever made, don't at me, from a gameplay perspective, sound design, and story in my opinion, but it was the first game my parents bought me when they finally caved and bought an Xbox 360 because my sisters were at school and your boy needed a babysitter. I hadn't even played the previous installments to the franchise, but within the first 5 minutes of witnessing this,
they let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. You know me. I did my research, watched as you became the soldier we needed you to be. Like the others, you were strong and swift and brave. A natural leader. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck. Was I wrong?
all I cared about was a big green dude, his tiny blue guardian angel, and the merry men of UNSC. Hoorah. This game single-handedly shaped the expectations I have from the gaming industry. To create a game that makes you care about the characters you're not only playing as, but playing with no prior knowledge to the lore, is god-tier level game design. That's not even mentioning the absolute unit of a multiplayer it has. The amount of time I spent doing the most random dog shit with my friends, like flipping elephants on sand trap, turning gravity all the way down and speed all the way up, and shouting obscenities that would make Tony Soprano say,
"Oh, how could you say that?"
whilst kicking each other out of Banshees is almost too much for my 25-year-old brain to comprehend. Growing up isn't easy for anyone, and while I don't want to speak entirely on behalf of my friends, I appreciate how effortlessly Halo was able to teleport not only myself but my friends into a world that made you forget about the random bullshit you worry about going through adolescence. This game set such a high standard for me that after 13 years and 2 console generations, we have still yet to see anything come even close to the cultural impact that Bungie's era of Halo had on the entire world. At the expense of not making this a straight up Halo video, let's backtrack a bit. So I got my first console in 2007, and not only was Soulja Boy cranking out jams
instead of knockoff gaming consoles,
but so is the gaming industry, with titles like Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Guitar Hero, Assassin's Creed 2, Call of Duty 4, and World at War, Grand Theft Auto 4. Hell, even Skate. All incredibly great games. And even if a few of them aged like a candle left out in the sun in the middle of August, literally in Oblivion's case, you will still see me playing those titles today. It's not because of the nostalgia, or at least that's what I try to convince myself. But I say that because I think a lot of TLC went into these games. While Bethesda might be a contributing factor to why I think there's so many things wrong with the gaming industry today, and even though I still haven't completed the main quest, I still have some of the most fun I've ever had in a video game going around committing the most random acts of violence, and that's pretty cool. As I made my way through high school, the momentum for video games was steady. My favorite franchises released their sequels: Halo 4 under the supervision of its new stepdad, 343 Industries, Skate 2 and 3, the conclusion of the Ezio storyline in Assassin's Creed, Bethesda's next smaller Elder Scrolls game, Skyrim, and whatever obligatory Call of Duty, Activision, or Treyarch was working on at the time. Which actually back then wasn't too bad, because they still had some dignity. With the Xbox 360 and the PS3 coming to the latter end of their lives in console years, the tide slowly began to shift to what would come next. Consoles came standard with internet connection. This is where I feel gaming began its rise in popularity in the mainstream, but its subsequent decline in quality. While I can't in good faith point my finger at my Wi-Fi router and shout, I can't help but feel that it has something to do with my issue with modern day gaming. Maybe it's just a result of me getting older and being harder to impress, but I don't think that's the whole story. The landscape now just feels different. In a world full of MMOs and loot boxes, and paying AAA price for a half-baked game or a broken one completely, the simplicity of a really well-developed game, rich in story and immersiveness that was provided to us in the past just doesn't really seem to be there that much anymore. Or at least to the degree when hardware limitations were much more of a bottleneck to get past. Which makes me a little sad, but that's not the point of the video either. Regardless of whatever your opinions are towards video games, I'd care to pose this argument. Video games are the most impactful source of media to date. Not just as a one-off source of entertainment, but as a tool for effectively teaching life lessons that no other source of media can match. How, you might ask? Well, hold on, I'll tell you. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge movie buff. I could spend hours discussing the intricacies of what will make a film objectively good or bad. I may not have a degree in film to back it up, but I took a few film classes before I dropped out, therefore, I know everything. I'm also a relatively newfound fan of reading books, but since I gear towards more philosophy and books applicable towards life in a more straightforward manner, I can't in good faith discuss the Harry Potter series or 50 Shades of Grey like I know it's trying to be conveyed through text. So excuse me if I speak in broad terms. Regardless of how well both mediums are at being able to immerse the consumer in a world outside of their own, it can't even come close to the amount of possibilities video games have. In both aforementioned forms of media, you, the reader or the viewer, have to project yourself onto the protagonist or antagonist if you're a sociopath. But in video games, you are that person. While there may be a set linearity in a more story-driven game, your approach in the landscape provided is exactly that, your approach. It's a reflection of who you are as the individual taking control of a character in a world much larger than your own. There's a deeper connection you make when your actions are either directly rewarded or punished as a result of your playstyle, while simultaneously providing you the lessons that the story is set out to convey. Regardless of whatever or whomever you decide to play as, you're the hero in the great journey. However, that's not always the case, and nor should it be. Video games, first and foremost, are entertainment. You could just be interested in playing classics like Tetris or Pac-Man. Or perhaps you're of the highest IQ and want to test your pulse and cranium by seeing how many pedestrians you can run down before your car dies in almost any Grand Theft Auto game. All games, while at their core have a story to tell, are ultimately renowned for their gameplay and mechanics. On the other hand, you can walk in the boots of Master Chief, fighting the Covenant alongside your fellow Marines in a last-ditch effort to save the AI you've been sworn to protect, teaching you the importance of responsibility and compassion. Or you can take up the mantle of the assassin Ezio, as you uncover the crime syndicate that mercilessly killed your family, teaching you that searching for truth and justice is much more virtuous than seeking vengeance. Or more simply, you can don the iconic red cap of the Italian plumber Mario, as you rescue the princess you've been simping for the last 30 plus years. Seriously, Peach, take some self-defense classes or something. It's like you want to get kidnapped at this point. My point being that while it might be the same game you're waiting in line for with everyone else at its midnight release, the moment you get home and start up your console, and you see the title screen pop up for the first time, it's at that very moment that that story becomes yours. To me, that's why video games are important. Could bias play a role in me saying that? Well, of course. I mean, I'd like to not look through rose-colored glasses as much as I can, but if it weren't for these titles, the landscape of the gaming industry would be vastly different than it is today. Whether that's for better or for worse, I don't know. What I do know is that if it weren't for these games, I wouldn't know a lot of the lessons that I know today. While I may not feel that the current generation of gaming isn't the antithesis for what it could or should be, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have hope. Everything needs to break in order for it to be fixed. Who knows, maybe that's what's happening right now. Developers are taking notice that their audience aren't responding as well as they had in the past, because what they're given isn't what they were expecting. However, I'm also not vain enough to say that the consumer is always right. Developers have a creative vision, and they have every right to see it through. However, in an ideal world, there should be common ground. A good example being Halo Infinite. While it may not look great from the outside, it's refreshing to see that 343 is willing to delay the game as a result of the backlash they received. I pray that when it finally releases, it's a game that they're proud of producing, as well as a game that was worth the wait as far as myself and many others are concerned. I have hope because while it might be misguided, a life without hope is a sad life, because what's the point otherwise? And for that reason, I'd like to close this video with a request. To the gaming industry, give us hope, give me hope, make me want to call myself a gamer again, make me feel like the kid who snuck around just to play some Super Nintendo, because video games are important and quarantine is boring.